All right, get ready to dive deep. Today, we're cracking open The 4-Hour Workweek by Timothy Ferriss.
This book, it's like a guide to, breaking free from that 9-to-5 grind, designing a life with more freedom, more fulfillment, think mini retirements, outsourcing, even facing your fears head on.
Sounds pretty tempting, but is this guy legit or just another self-help guru?
Ferriss, he's got some serious credentials. Like, he holds a Guinness World Record in tango.
Tango?
Yeah.
Seriously?
First American to ever get it. He's also a national Chinese kickboxing champion, even advised Olympic athletes. So he's not just talking, he's actually done this stuff.
Okay, so he's got the experience. But what's the core idea here?
It's this concept of the new rich. It's not necessarily about being super wealthy. It's more about prioritizing lifestyle, freedom over, the traditional work till you die mentality.
Right.
He contrasts this with what he calls the deferrers. These are the folks who work delaying any enjoyment for some future that, may never come.
I've definitely felt that pressure to put off happiness for someday.
Exactly. And that's what he's pushing against.
Now, Ferriss talks a lot about confronting fears, right? He calls it fear setting.
Yeah, it's not about being fearless. It's more about, dissecting those worst-case scenarios. What's the worst that could happen if, your biggest fear came true?
Honestly, the whole idea makes me nervous.
But often, when you actually look at it, the consequences aren't nearly as bad as we imagine. Think about it. What's something you're afraid of, like a change you'd like to make?
Well, I've always thought about, leaving my stable job to pursue something more creative. But the fear of financial instability, the possibility of failing, it holds me back.
Those are totally valid concerns, but let's break it down. What's the worst that could happen financially? Could you, downsize, pick up freelance work, maybe tap into savings?
Yeah, I guess I can make adjustments, figure out a way to make it work.
Exactly. And what about failing? What does failure even mean in this context?
I suppose I'm scared of not being successful enough, like not making enough money or ending up back where I started.
What if you, redefined failure? What if it was a learning experience? A stepping stone to something better?
I've never thought about it like that.
Ferriss, he uses this great example from his own life. Remember when he was running that nutritional supplement company? Feeling totally burned out, working crazy hours?
Yeah, I remember that story.
So what did he do? Booked a one-way ticket to Europe, left his business behind.
Wow, that was a big leap of faith.
He realized even if the company crashed and burned, he could always rebuild. Often, fear keeps us from doing anything at all. The worst that could happen usually isn't that bad. And even if things go wrong, we're more resilient than we think.
Okay, that makes sense. So facing fears is the first step. But then what?
Ferriss suggests setting, get this, unrealistic goals. Sounds crazy, right?
Yeah, shouldn't we be setting, realistic, achievable goals?
Think about it. When you aim ridiculously high, it kind of injects this adrenaline into your efforts. You push beyond those limits. On the other hand, aiming for realistic can be, kind of boring. Might not give you that same drive. What's a goal you've been putting off? Something that seems too big.
I've always wanted to write a novel,
Yeah.
but it just feels overwhelming. I'm not sure I have the talent, the discipline to really pull it off.
What if, instead of focusing on the entire novel, you set a smaller but unrealistic goal? Like writing 500 words a day for a month. It's still challenging, but more manageable, right?
That's true. It does feel less daunting when it's broken down. Plus, the unrealistic part makes it more exciting.
Right. Ferriss believes realistic goals can be uninspiring, leading to mediocre effort. Aim high, create that momentum, and that helps overcome challenges.
Okay, so facing fears, setting those audacious goals. What else does this 4-hour workweek lifestyle involve?
He talks about this low-information diet. We're bombarded with news, social media, emails, and so much of it is negative or irrelevant. Just a waste of time. He says we need to be as picky with our information intake as with what we eat.
So cut out the junk food of the information world. But staying informed is important, right?
Absolutely. But it's about being strategic. Ferriss suggests identifying and eliminating the sources that drain you without adding value. He even, get this, checked his email once a week and avoided news completely.
Wow, that's commitment. I don't know if I could go that far, but I can see how constantly checking email and news can be distracting.
You got to find what works for you. Maybe it's setting specific times for email or limiting social media. It's about taking back control of your attention.
Yeah, that makes sense. Create a mental space where you can focus on what matters.
Exactly. Declutter your mental inbox for creativity, productivity, and peace of mind.
Okay, I'm on board with that. So we've tackled fear, set audacious goals, and decluttered our minds. What's next on the Ferriss agenda?
He introduces two powerful principles that can, revolutionize your productivity: the 80-20 rule and Parkinson's law.
I've heard about the 80-20 rule, but remind me how it works again.
It's also known as the Pareto principle. It basically says 80% of your results come from just 20% of your efforts. Think about your job. Can you identify that 20% of tasks that generate the most results?
Let me think. I guess in my case, it would be closing deals, building relationships with those key clients.
There you go. Those are your high-impact activities. Now, Parkinson's law states that work expands to fill the time allotted. If you give yourself a week to complete a task, it'll likely take a week. But give yourself a day, you might just get it done in a day.
Procrastination. Definitely guilty of that. But how did Ferriss use these principles himself? Did he actually condense his work week to 4 hours?
He applied the 80-20 rule to his business, realized a small fraction of customers were generating most of his revenue. He was spending way too much time chasing after the rest.
So working smarter, not harder.
Exactly. By focusing on those top-performing clients, his income doubled, while his work hours dropped dramatically.
That's impressive. But what about all the smaller tasks that we can't just ignore? How do we manage those without getting overwhelmed?
Ferriss has a solution: batching.
Batching, what's that?
It's grouping similar tasks together to minimize distractions, maximize efficiency. Instead of checking email all day, dedicate specific times for your inbox. Same for bills, phone calls, any repetitive task.
Creating those focused blocks of time. That sounds way more productive than constantly switching gears.
It's like an assembly line for your work. More efficient, eliminates mental fatigue.
This is starting to sound like a pretty well-oiled machine.
Yeah.
But what about tasks that we just don't enjoy? Can we outsource those too?
You bet. And Ferriss takes outsourcing to a whole new level. Suggests outsourcing not just business tasks, but parts of your life. Remember that story of A.J. Jacobs, the writer who outsourced to a virtual assistant in India?
Oh yeah, he had his assistant argue with his wife about the thermostat, even break up with his girlfriend.
Right, it shows what's possible, but also the funny side of handing over control to someone across the world. Ferriss argues outsourcing can be super cost-effective, frees you up to focus on what you enjoy.
So if I hate doing taxes, I could theoretically outsource that.
Exactly. There are virtual assistants for everything: bookkeeping, travel planning, research, you name it.
Wow. I'm starting to see how this all comes together.
Yeah.
But where does the money come in? How do we escape needing a traditional job altogether? Is that even possible?
That's where the muse comes in.
The muse. Sounds a little mystical, doesn't it?
Not at all. It's what Ferriss calls a business designed to generate automated income with minimal time investment. Think of it as your ticket to financial freedom.
Okay, now we're talking.
Yeah.
But how do you create a muse? It sounds abstract.
He lays out some criteria: low startup costs, high automation potential, and manageable time commitment. He also stresses the importance of a niche market.
A niche market? Wouldn't it be better to appeal to a wider audience?
Not necessarily. A niche market lets you charge higher prices, face less competition. You'd rather be the big fish in a small pond, right?
Full pond, for sure.
Yeah.
But how do you become an expert in that niche? It seems like it takes years of experience.
Ferriss outlines a strategy for building credibility fast: strategic media appearances, writing for industry publications, even using services like ProfNet to connect with journalists. Positioning yourself as a thought leader.
It's not just about the product or service. It's about getting your name and message out there.
Exactly. Building your brand, establishing yourself as the go-to expert.
This is starting to sound pretty exciting. Building a business, facing fears, streamlining life. But let's be real. Even if you have a muse, you still need breaks, right?
Yeah.
Everyone needs a vacation.
And that's where Ferriss's mini retirements come in. Extended periods like 1 to 6 months to travel, relocate, experience new cultures. Breaking free from the traditional vacation, those short bursts of escape.
So not just about getting away for a week or two.
It's about slowing down, really immersing yourself, taking time to reevaluate your priorities, your goals. He recommends at least a month, ideally longer.
A month. That's a lot of time.
Yeah.
How do you convince your employer to let you take that much time off?
It depends on your situation, your company, your performance. Ferriss has some ideas, though. Frame it as a sabbatical for professional development. Or, if you're already working remotely, combine the mini retirement with a period of remote work.
So work from like a beach in Bali for a few months.
Exactly. Now, logistically, leaving everything behind for that long can seem overwhelming. But Ferriss gives tons of practical tips.
Like selling your car, renting out your house while you're gone. That seems intense.
It's about simplifying your life, getting rid of that weight of possessions. He also talks about automatic bill payments, forwarding mail, even giving power of attorney to someone you trust.
So take care of those details in advance. You can really disconnect and enjoy.
Precisely. Mini retirements don't have to be expensive either. They can be as simple as relocating to a new city for a while, or an extended road trip. The key is to break free from routine, gain new perspectives.
I love that. It's about the journey of self-discovery.
Now, to tie this all together, Ferriss talks about lifestyle design. It's about consciously crafting a life that aligns with your values, goals, aspirations.
So it's bigger than just escaping the 9 to 5. It's about creating a life you're actually excited about, a fulfilling life.
Exactly. He offers a framework called DEAL: definition, elimination, automation, and liberation, a step-by-step guide to designing your ideal life.
Okay, let's break down DEAL. What's involved in the definition phase?
It starts with defining your ideal lifestyle. What does your dream day look like? What activities bring you joy? What are your non-negotiables? Once you have that vision, you can start making choices that align with it.
I see how that's important. You need the roadmap before you can navigate.
Right. Next comes elimination. This is about cutting out anything that doesn't serve you. Time-wasting activities, toxic relationships, unnecessary commitments.
Decluttering your life to make space for what matters.
Exactly. And then we move on to automation.
Right.
This is where we use technology, outsourcing, to automate as many tasks as possible. Create systems that work for you so you can focus on things that require your unique skills.
Okay, so we've defined the vision, eliminated the unnecessary, and automated what we can. What's that final L, liberation?
This is it, the culmination. Achieving freedom from the constraints of a traditional job, location, lifestyle, is having the flexibility to live and work on your own terms.
Okay, starting to see how all these pieces fit together. It's like a recipe for an incredible life.
It is. And remember, true freedom isn't about escaping work entirely. It's about having the choice of how, when, and where you work.
Creating a life that allows you to chase your dreams, spend time with loved ones, make a difference, all in your own terms.
Exactly. It's about realizing you have more options than you think. You don't have to settle. You have the power to design a life you truly love. And in the next part of our deep dive, we'll explore more of Ferriss's practical tips and strategies for making this vision a reality. We'll talk about eliminating distractions, optimizing your time, and creating a life of true freedom and fulfillment.
This is getting really interesting. I can't wait to hear more about making this 4-hour work week a reality.
Stay tuned. We'll be back soon to explore the next chapter in this journey toward freedom and fulfillment.
So we've laid the groundwork, right?
Yeah.
Cackling those fears, setting big goals, decluttering our lives. But now, how do we actually escape the office?
Well, it's not about barging into your boss's office and demanding, a remote setup.
Right.
Ferriss, he suggests starting by defining your nightmare.
Defining your nightmare.
Yeah, not to dwell on the negative, but to analyze, what would actually happen if you lost your job today?
It's like a career version of that fear setting.
Yeah. Exactly. What steps could you take to, recover financially? Could you freelance, downsize, maybe use some savings?
You put it that way, it doesn't sound quite as catastrophic.
Right. Often the fear is worse than reality. And once you've done that, he recommends something interesting. Posting your resume on those job sites like Monster, Career Builder.
Even if I'm not actively looking for a new job.
Yeah. It's about seeing what's out there, recognizing you have options. It can be a real confidence boost to realize you're not stuck.
I like that. Okay, so let's say we've faced our fears and we're ready to make a move. How do we approach negotiating with our boss? I'm not looking forward to that conversation.
The key is focus on the benefits to the company, not just your personal ones. Highlight how remote work could, boost your productivity, reduce their overhead costs, even make you a happier, more engaged employee.
So present it as a win-win situation.
Exactly. Now, if they're resistant to the whole full-time remote thing, try proposing a trial period, like working from home 1 day a week. Show them you can be just as effective, even more so, outside the office.
And if the trial goes well, maybe I can gradually increase those remote days until I get to the freedom I want.
That's the idea. But remember, it's a negotiation. Be ready to compromise, be persistent, and don't be afraid to walk away if your needs aren't being met.
Right. There are plenty of other companies out there that are embracing remote work. I don't have to settle for a company stuck in the past.
That's the spirit. And remember, the goal isn't just to work in your pajamas, it's about getting your time back. The freedom to, pursue your passions, live a more fulfilling life.
That brings us back to something else Ferriss talks about, mini retirements.
Yeah.
The concept, it sounds incredible, but taking months off at a time
Yeah.
feels a little daunting.
It is a shift, right, from that traditional idea of vacation. Those short breaks, they're great, but we often cram too much in, come back stressed, end up with the post-vacation blues. Mini retirements, it's a different mindset.
So it's not just about escaping work for a week or two.
It's about slowing down, immersing yourself in a new culture, really taking the time to think about your priorities, your goals. Ferriss recommends at least a month, ideally longer.
A month? That's a significant chunk of time. How do I even, convince my employer to let me take that much time off?
Well, it depends on your company, your industry, your performance, of course. But Ferriss has some creative suggestions. You could frame it as a sabbatical, for professional development. Or if you've already proven yourself as a remote worker, maybe combine the mini retirement with some remote work.
So, work from a beach in Bali for a few months, I could get on board with that.
There you go. Now, logistically, leaving everything behind for that long can seem overwhelming. But Ferriss, he provides a ton of practical tips.
Like selling my car and renting out my house while I'm gone. That seems a bit extreme, doesn't it?
It's about streamlining your life, breaking free from all those possessions. He also talks about setting up automatic bill payments, forwarding mail, even giving power of attorney to someone you trust.
Okay, so by taking care of those practical details, you can really unplug and just enjoy the experience.
Exactly. And mini retirements don't have to be expensive either. They can be as simple as relocating to a new city for a while or taking that extended road trip. The key is break free from that routine, gain some new perspectives, create space for, personal growth.
I love that. It's not just about the destination, it's about the journey of self-discovery.
Now, to kind of tie this all together, Ferriss talks about lifestyle design. It's about consciously crafting a life that aligns with, your values, your goals, your aspirations.
So it's bigger than just escaping the 9 to 5. It's about creating a life that really excites you, that fulfills you.
Exactly. And he offers this framework called DEAL, DEAL, definition, elimination, automation, and liberation. It's basically a step-by-step guide to designing your ideal life.
Okay, I like it. So let's unpack DEAL. What's involved in the definition phase?
It starts with, defining your ideal lifestyle. What does your dream day look like? What activities bring you joy, give you energy? What are your non-negotiables? Once you have that vision, you can start making choices that align with it.
Right, you need that clear vision before you can, start navigating.
Absolutely. And then comes elimination, ruthlessly cutting out anything that doesn't serve you, whether it's time-wasting activities, toxic relationships, unnecessary commitments.
It's like you cluttering your life, making space for what really matters.
Exactly. And then we move on to automation.
Right.
This is where we leverage technology, outsourcing to automate as many tasks as possible, creating systems that work for you so you can focus on the things that require, your unique skills and talents.
Okay, so we've defined our vision, eliminated the unnecessary, automated what we can. What about that final L, liberation?
This is the culmination of it all. Achieving freedom from those constraints, the traditional job, location, lifestyle, having the flexibility to live and work on your terms.
Okay, I'm starting to see how all these pieces come together. It really is like a recipe for an incredible life.
It is. And remember, true freedom, it's not about escaping work altogether. It's about having the choice, how, when, and where you work.
It's about creating a life where you can pursue those dreams, spend time with loved ones, make a difference, all on your own terms.
Exactly. And ultimately realizing you have more options than you think. You don't have to settle. You have the power to design a life that you truly love.
This has been incredibly inspiring. I'm feeling motivated to take action, start crafting my own ideal lifestyle. What advice would you give someone just starting out on this journey?
Start small, Experiment. Don't be afraid to fail, because failure, it's just feedback. And most importantly, never stop learning, never stop growing.
Great advice. And for our listeners who want to explore further, be sure to check out Tim Ferriss's book, The 4-Hour Workweek, and his website. Tons of resources and inspiration there.
And on that note, we'll leave you with this. If you could design your perfect life, what would it look like? What steps can you take today to move closer to that vision?
Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep designing that life you truly love. All right, let's talk about those strategies for making this 4-hour workweek a reality. It all sounds great, but I need those concrete steps.
One of the most radical ideas Ferriss talks about is escaping the traditional office, like completely.
We touched on remote work, but this is next level, saying goodbye to the cubicle for good.
Exactly. He argues that for a lot of people, the office is a creativity killer. It's a productivity black hole filled with distractions, pointless meetings, that awful commute.
Oh, tell me about it. The commute, it's a time thief.
Yeah.
But how do we actually go from office worker to, location-independent freedom fighter? It just seems like a fantasy.
Ferriss has a plan. First, prove your value to the company. Become so indispensable they can't say no to your requests for flexibility.
So be a rock star, even when you're not physically there.
Right. Then, like we talked about, start negotiating those small concessions, like one remote day a week. Once you've proven you can be productive remotely, increase those days until you reach that ideal level of mobility.
It's a gradual approach, less likely to freak out the bosses.
Exactly. Now, he does acknowledge some employers will just never be on board with remote work. In those cases, he suggests, get this, getting fired.
Wait, what? Intentionally getting fired? That seems risky.
It might sound crazy, but sometimes it's easier to transition out of a job when you're forced to, rather than trying to negotiate your way out.
Like ripping off a Band-Aid. Painful at first, but a cleaner break.
Exactly. And if you're smart about it, you can even use that severance pay or unemployment to fund your transition to a new career, a new lifestyle.
Okay, I see the logic, but it's still scary. What if I don't have a backup plan?
That's where all that fear setting and planning comes in. Before making any big move, you got to have that financial safety net and a clear vision for what's next.
Right. Don't jump ship without a life raft. Have that plan, have a parachute, then take the leap.
Exactly. And remember, even if your initial plan isn't perfect, you can always adjust as you go. That's the beauty of this lifestyle design. It's an ongoing process.
I'm feeling a little more confident about the idea now. So besides escaping the office, what other productivity tips does Ferriss have? My days already feel packed.
He's got tons. One that stands out is eliminating unnecessary meetings.
Meetings, the worst.
Right. So many are just a total waste of time. Ferriss says, be assertive, question the need for any meeting you're invited to, ask for an agenda, a defined end time. If they can't provide those, politely decline.
I love that. Taking control of our time, not letting ourselves get sucked in.
Exactly. And if you absolutely can't avoid a meeting, set a time limit and stick to it. You can even excuse yourself early with an urgent call if you need to.
Oh, I've definitely used that one. Sometimes you got to do what you got to do. Another tip I remember was the idea of batching tasks.
Batching, it's a game changer. It's about grouping similar tasks together to minimize those distractions and really focus.
So instead of switching between emails, calls, to-dos, you create blocks of time for each activity.
Exactly. This lets you get into a flow, power through those tasks much faster.
Okay, so we've talked about escaping the office, automating our lives, taking mini retirements, and now optimizing our productivity. What does it all mean for our listeners? What's the takeaway?
The 4-hour work week, it's not just about working less, it's about living more intentionally, designing a life that aligns with your values, your passions.
It's about taking control of your time, your destiny, not being defined by a job title or a paycheck.
Absolutely. And remember, true freedom, it's not about escaping work entirely. It's about having the flexibility to choose how, when, and where you work.
It's about creating a life that allows you to chase your dreams, be with loved ones, make a difference, all on your own terms.
Exactly. Ultimately, it's about realizing you have more options than you think. You don't have to settle. You have the power to design a life that you truly love.
This has been an incredible deep dive. I feel inspired to take action, start building that ideal lifestyle. What advice would you give someone just beginning this journey?
Start small. Experiment. Don't be afraid to fail. Remember, failure is just feedback. And most importantly, keep learning. Keep growing.
That's great advice. And for our listeners who want to learn more, be sure to check out Tim Ferriss's book, The 4-Hour Workweek, and his website, which is packed with resources.
And on that note, we'll leave you with this. If you could design your perfect life, what would it look like? What can you do today to get a little closer to that vision?
Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep designing that life you love.